Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I had two interviews get postponed today, so instead I'm going to be talking about some very specific things that I've been doing on LinkedIn in the last probably 2 months that have skyrocketed my exposure on that platform. I went from using Buffer to simply curate content and share links to outside articles that I liked, that I thought would be valuable to my network, and I was getting about 100 to 200 views per post on those. It was not a lot of work. I would go through Buffer maybe once a month, and I would load up 50 or 60 articles that I thought would be interesting, and I just kind of set it and forget it. I wasn't really paying close attention to what I was putting on LinkedIn. And then I started following some guys that were really doing it right, and I noticed that every single post that they put up was just getting phenomenal engagement. And I thought, well, if my audience is on LinkedIn, this is a platform that I need to start taking seriously and start trying to capitalize more on. And so I started following some, just the simple model that I saw these guys following. And as a result, I've now, had, in the last probably month, I've had well over 100,000 views on the content that I have shared. One post in particular was a status update that I wrote highlighting 15 blogs for B2B marketers that I get a lot of value from. That one got over 44,000 views. I talked about how hard it is to grow an audience for a podcast, but why that actually doesn't matter. And that post got just over, it looks like 11,500 views. I wrote another post about 27 podcasts for B2B marketers. That one got over 30,000 views. And so, I went from getting 100 to 200 views per post to, getting, every post is getting, at least over 1,000 views per, and then usually more than 5,000 views per post. And so, there are a lot of folks out there that, have numbers way bigger than that, but I've got, I think I've got around 5,700 followers on LinkedIn, and to see my results go from 100 to 200 views to, well over 1,000 views per post has been phenomenal. So I'm going to share just a few of the things that I've been doing to get those results. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is that you need to write status updates instead of published posts. I have a published post on my profile right now. The title is, the reason Gary Vaynerchuk says you should be, every B2B brand should have a podcast. And I think that post, which is, on my site, or on my profile, and everyone that visits my profile can see it, still only has, I think, maybe less than 1,000 views. I'm going to pull it up real quick just to see. It's only got 200 clicks on that article, and it's got a nice headshot of Gary V. It's got a nice headline, and I wrote it back in May, and it still only has 200 clicks on it. But when I write status updates, they are viewed significantly more often. Now, you could argue that a view is not nearly as powerful as a click and someone actually reading the content, but when you write a status update, someone only has to hit see more. They're not clicking into an article. The article is showing up right in their news feed, because you're writing it natively as a status update. Now, you do have a character limit there. I can only write 1,300 word status updates on LinkedIn, so you've got to be tight and concise with what you're saying. But I care a lot about those views and the number of views, and I've seen a direct correlation to the number of views that my posts get and the number of people that I have following me on LinkedIn. I'm every day I'm seeing that more and more people are following me, not just requesting to be a connection. And so that's obviously increasing my influence. And then even more importantly than that, I'm getting inbound interest via LinkedIn from people that want to have us produce their podcasts. And so I think being visible on a platform where your buyers are is absolutely the game and what you should be trying to do. And I've just found that status updates over LinkedIn, published articles are way over indexing and performing way better. So that's the first point. The second point is that in those status updates that you're writing, you need to be writing 1-sentence paragraphs. Now, I write blog posts in a similar format just because I wholeheartedly believe that reading content on mobile matters. So many people consume their LinkedIn feed on mobile, and if you are writing big, long paragraphs that look massive on a mobile device, people are not going to consume your content. They're going to take one glance, they're going to think to themselves, it looks like way too much content to consume, and they're going to either keep on scrolling or completely ignore it altogether. And so I write 1-sentence paragraphs both with our blog and with my status updates, and what it does is it breaks the content down and makes it much more easy to digest. So that is point number 2. Point 3, if you are sharing a link in the post that you're sharing on LinkedIn, experiment with sharing that link in the first comment of the post. This is something that Guy Kawasaki has been talking about on LinkedIn for a while now. And when I experimented with my own posts, I went from getting, 100 to 200 views per post. My very next post had, I want to say, over 8,000 views. I think it was actually more than that, but I don't want to embellish here. So it had at least over 8,000 views just from doing that thing differently and putting that link to the article that I was sharing in the first comment of the post. There's a lot of people, that you can try to figure out why that's the case. Those preview images that LinkedIn populates in your status update, you would think that visual component would make people click on it more, but I think it has something more to do with LinkedIn just throttling how many news feeds your content ends up getting into if you have a link in the post. I don't know if that's because so many people are kind of taking the lazy way out with posting on LinkedIn and they're only sharing links to their content. So LinkedIn recognizes that if you don't have a link in the actual update, it's maybe more thoughtful content, and because of that they show it to more people. I don't know what exactly the rationale is there, but I've experimented in what I've seen, when you put the link to an article in the first comment of your post as opposed to in the status update itself, you get a lot more traction and a lot more eyeballs on it. So that is definitely something that you should at least experiment with and see if it works for you. And then this fourth point is that you need to share stories and a lesson learned. I follow a guy on LinkedIn that I'll mention a little bit later in this episode, and he talked about how every meeting or phone call that you sit in during the day, you should be able to document some sort of story that you can then share on your social profiles. And I thought that was really powerful because it forces you to audit how you're spending your days. Are you in meetings and on phone calls that are low value? If so, you should probably stop trying to get into those. You should probably take those meetings off of your calendar. Whether it's a meeting with your internal team and you're discussing a strategy that you think is going to take you guys to the next level, whether it's with prospective clients. Everything throughout your day can be documented and lessons can be learned. And when I started applying this mindset to my days, it completely changed and opened up the ability to create quality content and to be visible with my network as I started looking through the lens of every meeting, every phone call, everything I do during my work day should be, can be turned into compelling content for LinkedIn and for our Facebook group. And so when you are looking for stories, when you're looking for lessons, you will find them. So an example, last week I posted about my wife's dodgeball league and 3 things I learned by watching my wife dominate her dodgeball league, and kind of played the what I took away that can be related to business, related to watching some of the interactions that I saw in my wife's dodgeball league. So stories are everywhere and people resonate with them. So don't be afraid to, not don't be afraid to, you should actually be writing stories in 1-sentence paragraph form on LinkedIn if you want to see traction there. That's at least what I've been doing, and several other people that I've seen winning on that platform are doing. This next point that I want to talk about is taking a stance against a commonly held belief. And so there are, I am not a very combative person. I'm not very argumentative. I hate conflict. And so this has been one that I haven't done a lot of, but I have seen other people really succeeding here, taking a commonly held belief in their niche or in their industry and basically saying, I disagree with this. I don't think this is right. And what happens is it forces a lot of engagement, because you're obviously going to have the people that think you're stupid and don't agree with you chime in and comment and tell you so, which you can then go back and forth with them individually, and that creates even more engagement and tells LinkedIn that the post is getting that much more engagement. So I would definitely recommend replying to every single comment that you get on your updates, because that will drive it in front of that many more people. But then the adverse is true as well. If you are fighting against a commonly held belief, there are probably other people that agree with you, and they will chime into the comments. They'll like your post as well. So, like I said, I haven't done this as much. I think the audience growth post that I did that got just over 8,000 views was probably the closest to that, because most people think that podcasting is all about growing a listener base, and I basically said in the post, listeners don't matter nearly as much as you think they do, and when you're first starting off, I argue they don't matter at all. It's all about the relationships that you create with your guests. And so I saw a little bit of traction there. Obviously not the most traction that I've seen, but got over 8,000 views on a post, which if I had 8,000 views on a YouTube video, I would be jumping up and down and singing. And so the fact that I can get that on a platform where I know the lion's share of my buyers are living, I'm very excited about that result. Another thing that I want to mention is list posts. 2 of my highest performing LinkedIn updates have been a result of me sharing link posts. Now, I hesitated on whether or not to share this with you because it's been working so well for me and I want to hog it to myself, but I got to share the love. So I did a post highlighting 27 of my favorite B2B marketing podcasts, and then I tagged all of the hosts that I was already connected to, or I think you can tag somebody even if they're a second, a second or third connection. You don't think you have to be connected to them firsthand to be able to tag them. And so by doing that, I get to tag a lot of people in my status update, so it automatically flags them. But when I've seen other people using tactics where they tag influencers in their content to try to get them engaged, because when an influencer with lots of followers engages, it shows up in a lot of their followers' updates or news feeds saying that, whatever, John Barrows commented on a post, and so it will show to a lot of his followers that John Barrows commented, thereby getting you more exposure. But what I've seen is that actually makes a lot of people angry, the influencer themselves, whenever you tag them in things like that. But if you tag them in something where you're highlighting them as a top blog, a top podcast, a social selling expert, then they don't actually mind it, at least from what I've been able to tell. They like being seen as a thought leader and as somebody that knows what they're talking about. And when it's a list post that ranks basically the people that you learn the most about marketing automation from, and then you list off 15 different influencers, that is one, very helpful content for people in your network that want to learn more about, whatever it is that the list post is about, but it also is a giant ego stroke to the people that you have tagged in those updates. And so those have been my two highest performing. So experiment with some list posts. Think about different things that, what are the tools you're using, who are influencers that you're following, who's crushing it on a particular social platform that you use a lot, maybe Twitter or LinkedIn for you. Maybe they're industry influencers that you can tag in a post and say, hey, these are the five guys or girls that I'm following on LinkedIn that are bringing me enormous value in the automotive industry, or whatever the case may be. And so list posts are definitely something to look at. This last thing that I'm going to share with you, I'm obviously getting more and more active on LinkedIn, so follow me on LinkedIn to see what I am doing there. But there are some other guys that are doing it much better than me, that I am kind of learning from. And so the first person that I want to mention here is Josh Fechter, Fechter. He is crushing it on LinkedIn right now. He's also got a Facebook group that you'll see if you go to his LinkedIn profile. You'll see a link to that group. But he's probably the one that I'm learning the most from as far as how to really win on LinkedIn. So make sure you go and follow Josh, even if he doesn't. If you try to connect with him and he doesn't accept your connection request, you should at least follow him on that platform so you can see what he's doing there. Another one is Max Altschuler. Max has been on our podcast in the past. He wrote the book Sales Hacker. He's thought leader in the sales and marketing arena. He owns a company called Sales Hacker that puts on a bunch of virtual events, and it's just a very well-known name in that space. And recently I've noticed more that he is putting more content on LinkedIn with this similar style. So follow Josh, follow Max, and then Robbie Abed is another guy that I would say that you should follow on LinkedIn. He, Robbie and I Robbie was a former client of ours, and so worked with him in the past and have been following him on LinkedIn ever since. And again, recently, I think it's because I've been more proactive with LinkedIn. I've been keeping my eye out for other people, and Robbie is definitely someone that you should be following on LinkedIn, because I'm seeing him in my newsfeed more and more. His posts are insightful. They're helpful, and they're getting a lot of traction because of it. So Josh Fechter, Max Altschuler, and Robbie Abed, you should absolutely be following on LinkedIn. So to recap this list, you need to be writing statuses instead of published posts on LinkedIn. In those statuses, you need to be writing one-sentence paragraphs. If you are sharing a link, you need to be sharing the link in the first comment of those posts instead of in the post itself. You need to be sharing sharing stories and the lessons that you've learned from those stories. If you can bust them up, format it like a list post, even better. You need to be sharing list posts natively on LinkedIn, like what I've been doing with my 27 best podcasts, 15 best blogs to follow. I think I did 8 social selling experts to follow. List posts are doing very well for me, and I think they can for you as well. This next point, take a stance against a commonly held belief, and then also make sure that you are following Josh, Max, and Robbie. Again, hope this is super helpful. Have a fantastic day.